Hey y'all, and welcome back to the archives. I'm Brittany, and today's tale is almost too terrifying to talk about. Am I the only one that didn't know the secrets of the past? The old house creaked, wind howled, a shutter banged against the wall. Or was it the wind? There was something else in this house, something unseen, something unsettling. It whispered in the shadows, a presence felt but never seen. It toyed with the living, a haunting melody that chilled the bone. The whispers spoke of a forgotten past, a tragedy echoing through time, and at the heart of it all, a doll. Sarah loved exploring. The old house inherited from her grandmother was an explorer's dream. Each room held forgotten treasures and whispered stories of the past. Today, her adventure led her to the attic. Cobwebs clung to the rafters like ghostly drapes. Dust covered everything, a blanket of forgotten time. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of decay and the weight of memories. Sarah stepped carefully, her heart pounding with anticipation. In the corner, beneath a faded tapestry, sat an old trunk. It had been there for as long as Sarah could remember, a relic from a time long past, shrouded in mystery and dust. Sarah knelt, her fingers tracing the worn leather. The texture was rough, yet it held a certain charm, a promise of stories untold. She hesitated for a moment, feeling a strange pull towards the trunk. Inside, nestled in yellowed lace, lay a doll. It was unlike any doll she had ever seen, with an aura of elegance and an air of mystery that seemed to emanate from its very core. Its porcelain skin was smooth and cold. The craftsmanship was exquisite, every detail meticulously crafted, from the delicate blush on its cheeks to the fine lines of its lips. Its eyes, a piercing emerald green, seemed to follow her every move. They were so lifelike, almost as if they held a soul within them, watching, waiting. The doll was beautiful, captivating. It drew Sarah in, making her forget the world around her, lost in the depths of those emerald eyes. But something about it made Sarah uneasy. There was an unsettling feeling that crept up her spine, a whisper of something not quite right. Its gaze felt heavy, as if it held ancient secrets and unspoken sorrows. It was as though the doll had witnessed countless lifetimes, each one leaving a mark on its soul. Sarah picked up the doll, its tiny porcelain hand cold against her skin. The chill sent a shiver through her, a reminder of the doll's eerie presence. It felt real, too real. The weight of the doll in her hands was almost lifelike, as if it were more than just a simple toy. It was as if it had a life of its own, waiting to be awakened. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, and the old house creaked around her. But it was something else that kept her awake. A whisper, soft and low, seemed to come from the corner of her room. Sarah. Her heart pounded. She sat up, peering into the darkness. The doll sat on her dresser, its emerald eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Had it always been there? The whispering started again, a faint murmur that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah, play with me. The next day, Sarah tried to convince herself it was just a dream. She went about her daily routine, hoping the unsettling images would fade from her memory. But the vividness of the nightmare lingered, casting a shadow over her thoughts. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside seemed amplified, feeding her growing anxiety. She found herself glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. The doll's eyes seemed to follow her, their emerald depths filled with an unnerving knowing. It was as if the doll was aware of her every move, watching her with a sinister intent. The more she tried to ignore it, the more its presence seemed to dominate the room. She tried to ignore it, but the whispers continued, growing stronger each day. They were faint at first, barely audible, but soon they became impossible to dismiss. They seemed to come from the doll, filling the room with a chilling, otherworldly murmur. One night, Sarah saw it, a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. She turned quickly, her heart pounding, but there was nothing there. Just the oppressive darkness, pressing in on her from all sides. A flicker of movement in the corner of her eye, a shadow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, playing tricks on her mind, making her question her own sanity. A shadow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. The room felt colder now, the air thick with unseen energy. It was a cold that seeped into her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. The room felt colder now, the air thick with unseen energy. She could see her breath in the air, a foggy mist that hung in the dim light. It was as if the very atmosphere was charged with a malevolent force. She was no longer alone in the house. The realization hit her like a physical blow, leaving her breathless and terrified. She could feel the presence, lurking just out of sight, watching her with unseen eyes. She knew, deep down, that something was coming for her. Desperate, Sarah sought answers in her grandmother's journals. She discovered a faded entry, a chilling tale of a young girl and her beloved doll. The girl had died tragically, her spirit said to be trapped within the doll's porcelain shell. Fear coiled in Sarah's stomach. The whispers, the shadows, it all made sense now. The doll was not alone. It was possessed by the spirit of the young girl, forever seeking a companion in her eternal solitude. Gap 3S. As Sarah delved deeper into her grandmother's journals, she stumbled upon a music box, its surface adorned with intricate carvings. Curious, she wound it up. A haunting melody began to play, filling the room with its eerie tune. The music seemed to resonate with the doll, its emerald eyes glinting in the dim light. Gap 2S. The melody was both beautiful and unsettling, as if it carried a message from the past. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she listened. The music seemed to awaken something within the doll, its eyes glowing brighter with each note. Sarah could almost hear the whispers of the young girl, woven into the melody, pleading for release. Gap 2S. The room grew colder and shadows danced on the walls in time with the music. Sarah could feel the presence of the spirit growing stronger, its energy pulsating through the air. The melody reached a crescendo, and for a moment everything went still. The whispers ceased, the shadows froze, and Sarah could feel the weight of the doll's gaze upon her. Gap 2S. She knew that the music box held a key to the doll's power, a connection to the spirit trapped within. But unlocking its secrets would come at a price. The haunting melody echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the young girl's tragic fate and the doll's sinister presence. Gap 2S. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel for more haunting tales and mysterious stories. Stay tuned for more. Sarah knew she had to do something. The doll had been in her family for generations, passed down from mother to daughter, each one whispering the same warning: never let it out of your sight. But Sarah felt a growing unease, a sense that the doll was more than just a family heirloom. It was as if it had a life of its own, a presence that watched her every move. The spirit, restless and yearning, was growing stronger. It seemed to feed off her fear, growing more powerful with each passing day. The air around her grew colder, and shadows seemed to move on their own. Sarah could feel the weight of the spirit pressing down on her, suffocating her with its malevolent intent. She tried to get rid of the doll, to throw it away, to bury it. She even considered burning it, but something always stopped her. It was as if the doll had a will of its own, compelling her to keep it close. Each attempt to dispose of it was met with an overwhelming sense of dread, but every attempt was met with an unseen force. Doors slammed shut, lights flickered. The house itself seemed to rebel against her efforts, as if it were protecting the doll. The more she tried to fight it, the stronger the force became, until she was left feeling utterly powerless. The whispers turned into pleas, then demands, echoing through the empty house. They were insistent, relentless, filling her mind with their sinister messages. She could hear them even in her dreams, a constant, haunting presence that left her feeling drained and terrified. Was she imagining it, or was the spirit truly speaking to her? The line between reality and nightmare blurred, leaving her questioning her own sanity. She wandered through the darkened rooms, searching for answers, but finding only more questions. Or were the doll's eyes glowing brighter, its grip on her own hand tightening? Sarah was trapped, bound to the haunted doll and the spirit it held captive. The eyes seemed to follow her, glowing with an unnatural light that sent chills down her spine. Its grip on her own hand tightening? Sarah was trapped, bound to the haunted doll and the spirit it held captive. She could feel the weight of the doll in her hands, a constant reminder of the spirit's presence. It was as if the doll were alive, its malevolent energy seeping into her very soul. And as the whispers grew louder, echoing the young girl's name, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, was she the one being possessed? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, filling her with a sense of dread and hopelessness. She could feel the spirit's influence growing stronger, its dark energy wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. But Sarah knew she couldn't let the spirit win. Desperation fueled her resolve as she remembered the stories her grandmother had told her about the doll. There was one last thing she hadn't tried, an ancient ritual said to banish spirits back to where they came from. With trembling hands, she retrieved her grandmother's old journal from the attic. The pages were yellowed and fragile, but the words were clear. The ritual required a full moon, a circle of salt, and a personal item to bind the spirit. As the moonlight streamed through the window, Sarah hastily drew a circle of salt on the floor and placed the doll in the center. She added a locket that had belonged to her mother, hoping it would be enough to sever the spirit's hold. The air grew thick with tension as she began to chant the ancient incantation. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if the spirit knew what was coming. Shadows danced wildly around the room and the temperature plummeted. Sarah's breath came out in frosty puffs as she continued the ritual, her voice growing stronger with each word. Suddenly, a piercing scream filled the room, and the doll's eyes glowed with an intense, blinding light. Sarah felt an overwhelming force pushing against her, but she stood her ground, determined to see the ritual through. The light grew brighter, the scream louder, until it reached a deafening crescendo. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The room fell silent, the air warm once more. The doll lay lifeless in the circle of salt, its eyes now dull and empty. The spirit was gone. Sarah collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. She had done it. The nightmare was over. As she looked at the doll one last time, she knew she would never forget the terror she had faced. But she also knew she had the strength to overcome it. And with that, she took the doll, wrapped it in an old cloth, and placed it in a locked chest. It was a family heirloom, yes, but it was also a reminder of the darkness she had conquered. And as long as it remained locked away, she knew she would be safe. For now. That's all for today, folks. Let me know in the comments if you think Sarah made the right decision. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And above all, stay curious.